Hello and welcome to a new episode of Insurance Unlimited, the Unlimited podcast sponsored by Endava. I'm Paul Willoughby, the host, and as you'll be familiar with this is a kind of fireside chat where we interview people from the London insurance market or the global insurance market. We do venture out of London occasionally. Today, I'm really, really happy to say that I've got an old friend with me, Mr. James Willison of Web Connectivity. Hi, James.
Hey Paul, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Today we're going to try and cover off our sort of different perspectives of the London market. Both of us have got, let's just say, quite a lot of legacy, and a lot of experience, and both immensely passionate about the London market and modernisation. So we're going to kind of touch on all things, all things Lloyd's and London market. And James, first of all, how are you? You well?
Yeah, no, good, good. I managed to get out on the golf course yesterday, and it wasn't 33 degrees. It was much more pleasant, 25 degrees. And first time I played in 12 months, and enjoyed it. Yeah, so it was a good day. Yeah.
Well, hopefully this won't go out in winter because people will think that's strange. But yeah, for those that are listening a bit later on, we've had some pretty immense weather for the UK at the moment.
Don't often get the chance to say that, so it's
No.
I've got to make sure it's every valuable opportunity.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. James, just for the benefit of the listeners, can you introduce yourself? And what we like to ask is whether you intended to ever intended to ever come into insurance, or did you fall into insurance like the rest of us?
I think you might have given the game away slightly with the question there in terms of so James Willison, Managing Director at WCL, as you mentioned, Web Connectivity Limited. Been with Web Connectivity now for essentially for 20 years. Joined as Managing Director, still am Managing Director. So the job's probably changed. Yeah, the job's probably changed a little bit over those couple of decades. But before that, worked as a consultant in the London market for a number of years as well. I would love to say, given my passion for the industry, that I did a whole load of research, looked at the different markets out there, and decided that the London insurance market was the place to be. However, I fell into it completely by accident. I'd love to say otherwise, and maybe that's a reflection of how we position ourselves as a market, kind of externally. But I was working for the Legal Aid Board.
Okay.
A non-departmental government body, a Quango, reporting sort of ultimately into the Lord Chancellor. Me and the public sector didn't really kind of see eye to eye on a few things, and I wanted a change of career. I was in Gray's Inn Road, so I was close enough to the city. I thought the city looked like an interesting place, and actually went to set my sights on management consultancy. So I applied to a number of management consultancy firms, one of which happened to specialise in insurance. So it was a sort of a niche boutique consultancy firm. It had the likes of Roy Laker, Stephen Haas, Tim Page, these kind of long luminaries of the insurance market. And they wanted essentially a dog spot to come and kind of help them out on a few different projects. Yeah, had my interview in a wine bar.
She did. She did.
Over a bottle of wine when the CEO was smoking a cigar. So that dates how long ago it was, because you could smoke inside. And at the end of our session, he said, "If you're interested in a job, give me a call." And I thought, well, this seems like an industry I could get involved in. And that was 25 plus years ago, and not look back, and couldn't see myself working in any other industry.
Well, thank God you did. Thank God you chose insurance, right? Because where would we be without you? So when we first met, you just come off of a stint at Lloyd's working on market modernisation. And when considering your years in the market, where do you think we are on the modernisation roadmap? Do you think we've made enough progress? Do you think we're lacking progress? Is there something holding us back?
Yeah, and I think there's a number of different components to that. And I think one element, and I'm just as guilty as the next, is we like to beat ourselves up to a certain extent as a market industry in terms of not changing as quickly as we should. And we don't help ourselves in terms of, we've tried this a number of times before, a number of different iterations. So if we step back and say, well, what are we looking to do? So I think they're looking at digital placements, so exchanging capital for risk in the most efficient way possible. Once the risk has been agreed, how do you ensure that both parties know the expected premium they're going to receive, and then ensure that there's a flow of money around that? And then, in the unfortunate situations where a claim does happen, they're notified to all parties, and that claim is paid. All correct claims, valid claims are paid as quickly as possible. Those notions have been around certainly since I've been working in the market, which is 25 years. And when I joined 25 years ago, people telling me about, well, these are projects we've been working on for X number of years before. So the problem is that we still kind of agree that those are the things we want to do. However, we've definitely made progress in those. I mean, if we take claims, I think claims is a great example. Certainly when I was first working in Lloyd's on the claims sort of projects, it was a paper claim file. Working on a subscription market. So to get a claim agreed, the claims broker took that put it in a cupboard essentially at an insurer, left it there, came to pick it back the next day to see if they agreed their claim, and then physically moved it to the next party. So we have this notion of a process which is very much in series, and to speed it up, you can't just sort of make someone walk quicker or make them like put it into a cupboard quicker, whatever it is. So making electronic and say, right, you can all agree it at the same time. That electronic claim file, that whole project and how that's involved into right back and other things, I think is a real good example of what we've done as a market. I also have experience of other global markets where London is seen as kind of being at the forefront of some of it. I mean, data exchange around the accounting settlement side it's central settlement. Let's look at a market that's set up and go, you know what, we are going to have central settlement, and across the market we're going to actually only have to move like 10% of the actual monies that need to be reported. So we don't have to pay each individual premium claim individually. So by doing the central settlement, we can vastly reduce the actual physical payments that need to be made. That should be the jewel in the crown, and is very enviable from other markets. So there's all these things that we have done. Just picking up on the point of claims, I think enough time has passed now that I can tell the story. But I was standing in the Lloyd's old library giving a sort of a market update or presentation, and it was the regulators were taking interest in the London market at the time. It was the FCA at the time. They were getting much more involved in what was going on, and it was an open forum. And I'd got all the stats in front of me in terms of the average time it took for a claim to get paid in the London market. And the numbers weren't great. I mean, this was before electronic files kind of existed. So a very complicated claim going to multiple claims parties, getting agreed by the company market and the Lloyd's market, the Lloyd's claim scheme could take a significant time. And Bermuda were sort of talking about 3, 4, 5 days in terms of claim turnaround. They were really going after claims, but I can't remember the exact number. But let's say it was it was not uncommon for like 60 plus days for a claim to get paid. I mean, it was very, and this question came up from a journalist, and I was always a little bit sort of on edge, and not quite sure exactly what you could have said. And they said, can you confirm that it could take 25 days for a claim to get paid in the London market? And I said, well, it pains me to say this, but I can confirm that it could take 25 days for a claim to get paid, knowing that the average at that point was, very pleased to say that, some of these transformation, just going back to your original question, some of the transformation things that we've done has had a marked improvement. So, the numbers do show that there are things. All of that said, there's much more we can do. But I think that, you're never gonna end, try not to say, right, that's it, we're done. Transformation is done.
It's interesting what you say, because we do beat ourselves up, and I think there's a lot of people throwing in grenades from the sidelines on this stuff. But when we both worked at Lloyd's, we both led modernisation initiatives, and you're trying to move 60,000 plus people. This is a massive market. You're trying to change culture, technology, data, the plumbing. It's not just rewiring the plumbing of a house. It's a whole estate, a city.
Yeah,
Which ones?
it's a marketplace which has significant value to the whole of the UK in terms of visible earnings and things. Like it needs to be right, and so we need to get that balance of transformation for obviously for the real reasons for doing it, but also it needs to be done in a way which doesn't inadvertently undermine the market somehow or cause or introduce risk elements to it.
Yeah, and
other than the insurance risk.
And I think you're absolutely right. My challenge is, now being on the outside, I get immensely frustrated by a lack of progress because, I want to see this stuff happen before I retire, and we've been involved in it. And the current iteration of Blueprint 2 has had its, had some it's faltered slightly, and the comms have not particularly helped, and some of the as I say, some of these grenades and sidelines aren't helping, but I suppose it's front and center of everyone's mind. What are your customers saying? Because for you this is fundamental to your business model.
So again, I think there's almost like a micro level and a macro level to Blueprint 2, and if we step back and look at Posh and Liz as a set of infrastructure which was set up in the 1980s, which has been generating, the first of its kind in terms of electronic data to go out and be processed automatically. So the electronic data exchange with the carrier market, it's been around for a long time. We can't have this global market now still relying on infrastructure being around so long, and it's proprietary to London. So the whole notion of saying, right, we are going to replatform and update that and put it into the cloud, use common data standards, and it is, you can't argue with it. You can't, you talk about people throwing in grenades. Well, what's that grenade going to say? No, stick with what you've got. It's just not an option. It's not or if someone then turn around, or if it's, heaven forbid, really creaked and fell apart and needed a fix, and you've got to try and find someone that's retired 20 years ago to fix a code. Like, we can't be in that. It's a global organization which is at the sort of forefront of a number of these things. So we need to move. The issue then comes is that the complexity of what's required is significant. And I know some of the comms have been, the complexity was not necessarily fully appreciated at the start. I mean, personally, if you ask the right people or you ask different people, people would tell you, they would say, look, we know there isn't documentation in place for a number of things. We know that people have tweaked various parts of this over however many decades and don't necessarily know where all of it. So to replicate it is really hard. But again, a challenge which is going to be faced with the market. There's no easy answer to it, and clearly, people keep on looking back to it. So there's not an easy answer. But the approach being taken out is a big bang. It's a right. We're going to take what we've got today. We're going to so Posh and Liz, these are replaced by iPods and iCuts. There is a time when there's a switch over.
Yep.
And I'm not sure, just because you mentioned the number of people, number of companies that engage with this, that a rollback is that straightforward. If indeed it is possible. So then you're into a case which is a big bang with no fallback, with a fixed forward. And that big bang, then, we talk about data exchange and all these different acronyms. However, for this to work, this is premiums and claims that are flowing for the entire London market, which is what notionally 100 billion gross written premium coming in a year. There are claims which need paying on the back of it, and then there's central settlement. If these things go out of whack and people then don't think they're getting the right payments, or claims are not able to be paid, or premiums aren't flowing, this has significant issues, and significant issues for regulated individuals that are having to kind of sign off on things. And just to go back to the why it's probably taking a little bit longer, is that it's not something you can just go, it will be okay, or we'll get it just about there, and we'll kind of
The analogy I was just thinking of is, I talked about rewiring the house, but this is not just rewiring your house. This is taking the plumbing out and doing the plumbing at the same time. And it's not a case of,
Yeah,
oh, we haven't got any electricity, so we can light a fire because the fireplace is probably going to get taken out. It's
you
just,
can't just do
it's
one
no
with it.
point, is it?
And see, I think one of the points you referenced was what are our customers saying, and to so testing becomes the key thing. So to get a level of confidence, you have to have testing, and because the bit there's been, the build is now complete, it's perhaps taking a bit longer than anticipated, which means that there's not going to impact the testing. And actually, I think with any build, you kind of go through that cycle of, once you start testing, you genuinely want things to come out of that. If someone turned around and said we've tested it and it's all fine, I'd be worried at this stage. That wouldn't, you sort of want some changes to come out on the back of that. So I think we're going to go through that kind of testing piece. But in terms of what customers want, I think that they're crying out for us to say, right, we want to take a period of data, push that through the old system, have that come into our systems, and we see how all that looks and how it hits our policy admin system, which may also not be that much newer than generally newer than 98, but it's not as if that there's components there which won't have been touched for a long time as well, and the loaders that are picking up the data from the bureau aren't sort of updated on a regular basis. They want to say, let's have a whole set of data which comes through today. How does that look? And then put the same risks through the new infrastructure, and how does that all look? And we've tried to, as a project, that's been shied away from. But if you're asking people what they're really like, if they've got to sign a physical piece of paper which says I'm comfortable that what I'm going to get in the future is, I think that's what they say.
They want to see it,
and interestingly, we've been. So there's another component to this as well. So you've got a like-for-like replacement in terms of taking the old infrastructure, putting the new infrastructure in place. However, there are certain elements of that old infrastructure which no one's got hope in hell of trying to replicate, because they have no idea really how it was done. So there are certain bits, there's certain companies that have been told, actually, we know you get this very bespoke message format which comes out. We don't know how that was done. You're not getting that from the go live blueprint, but it's not going to be there. Interestingly, those organisations have been in a better position, I believe. So because they've said, right, well, we need to make some changes.
You've got no choice.
So they've been able to take two feeds at the moment. Now, admittedly not the feed from the new IPOS and ICOS, but they've been able to move to an Accord feed, because there is the Accord for all messages, which the London Market been processing Accord ecom messages since 2012. So they've got these Accord messages they can take now, parallel run those with what they're getting from the EDI message, and then just check that can kind of that they are like for like. And then we've done a number where they've got like 6 months worth of messages, so they feel as long as the Accord for all message which comes out from the new service is similar, but because it's XML, it's easier to kind of manipulate a little bit more. You've got a bit more flexibility. EDI is inherently hard to change. You tend to have to process the entire batch, and you tend to have each message in the right. And if it doesn't go through, it fails, but it doesn't tell you why it failed. And also, it might tell you why it's failed, but it won't tell you all the reasons why it failed. So you're into this kind of. So I think there's going to be some challenges. I think there's things that customers are asking for, which are difficult, but actually there may become a time where if people have to physically sign a piece of paper which says to the regulator, yes, I'm comfortable with this, I think there's going to be
it's good. I mean, for the benefit of our non-London market listeners, there's a lot of acronyms in there, right? And we'll put a dummy's guide in the comments to some of them, because we've got EBOT, EDI, POSH.
Terrible affliction that I have with 25 years where I just can't help but speak in a sort of nonsensical sort of language. I think we always do it intentionally to make it seem more exotic from the outside.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing more exotic than having a system called Posh, right? I was trying to work out whether it's as old or older than Posh Spice. What do you think?
It is. Oh, what in terms of? Well, I suppose her acronym certainly. Also, not her. Her sort of her name would have been established much after Posh.
Yes. Yeah. That's true. That's true. So we've got
in terms of Victoria, whether she's probably a similar age, and like to comment.
No, you don't do that, do you? Don't do that. So from a web connectivity perspective, your business has always been built around supporting the central services, supporting the messaging for clients. Give us an overview of the sort of clients that you work with. You don't have to name names, but what is it that you're delivering for those clients, and how important is this central service refresh for you as a business?
Yeah. So we. I mean, we typically work with all players in the market. Well, I say the players. So the major global brokers, across London and elsewhere, and then a whole host of Lloyd's managing agents, a whole host of company market, but then global insurers and global reinsurers as well. So I break that down in two axes as such. So we do the bureau and non-bureau market. So we work with companies that connect into those central services, and equally we work with companies that actually deal with brokers on a peer-to-peer basis. And many of those, there's overlap between the two. We'll have different platforms and everything like that, but the processes are inherently different. So we have that bureau and non-bureau piece, and then we sort of align ourselves to the transformation efforts which we believe companies want to do, i.e. electronic placing or electronic distribution at some level, electronic accounting settlements, how do you establish that premium and then move that, and then electronic claims. And there's a different approach to those if it's that peer-to-peer or central services. So how you deal with claims is different if you're dealing in the central market where you've got people perhaps agreeing some claims on your behalf, so in the Lloyd's market versus the London market, or you've got a direct relationship with brokers where you're getting a first notification of loss coming by email. Like, well, actually, let's get that into data and I'll work that through. So, I'll mix those. What that means in practice, and tying that back into some of Blueprint 2. So, if we look at electronic placing, electronic distribution, there's in the non-bureau market, and this tends to be more on the reinsurance side, but the brokers have built their own trading platforms. So you've got Aon with AB Connect, you've got Guy Carpenter with GC Marketplace, you've got SageLink that locked in the box. I think that's a trend that will continue. I think the brokers, certainly in that market, would be, I think it's like a data ownership or data retention piece or control element. That works well for the brokers, individual brokers. The carriers then have an issue where they then got to connect into those multiple systems. And this is where we come back to the transformation thing, and is it always the right thing to do for everyone? And so you can you've got to balance those requirements. You've got the brokers going, well, we want one way of accessing our markets, but by definition each broker doesn't do it the same way, so the carriers now have business coming from multiple sources. But it is all, it's digital. We're looking at based around structured like agreed standards. There's a lot of data fields in there as well, but we can plug into those. So we talk about electronic placing, so we do plumbing and connectivity. We can connect into those disparate broker platforms, then provide an aggregated view of the data. Once you've got that data, you can then start to do something with that. Now, is that then automate some of the pricing rules that you have? Is it some triaging that you want to do? Is it even starting? We talk about algorithmic underwriting as a kind of key direction for the market, and I think without a doubt that will be one of the big things which shifts in the marketplace in the next few years. You can't do that without data. You can't, there's a kind of prerequisite. So by aggregating this data and then allowing you to do those type of things. Then we look at the London market, much more around the kind of the white space, the PPL placing platform, and others. So you've got rather than broker proprietary ones, but you've got the same issue from an underwriter's point of view. But now got data in multiple places. So how do you then aggregate, a view of that? And then you go back up a level of, well, these organizations typically working multiple platforms. So now they've got, connectivity to brokers, reinsurance brokers, to placing platforms, to proprietary platforms that set up for a single class of business. They've got all their data on, they can start a similar downstream process. And that's where we're starting to see the kind of underwriter workbench piece as well. I mean, a lot of our clients are looking at that area, the underwriter workbench, but you need a data feed for that.
Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah. Integrating into a number of those kind of workbench ideas. Accounting side is typically a lot all around the Rush-Recon initiative. So this notion of replacing closings and spreadsheet statements with structured data in kind of real time. So soon the broker has booked a ledger position saying, this is the invoice, this is the expected premium I'm going to issue out to the customer. That's shared with an insurer, with a carrier. This is what we booked. Is this what you booked? Does it marry up? Yes, it does. Great. Right. We can then have that as an agreed transaction. Once then the money is paid from the client, we can then move that and we'll aggregate up a whole host of pre-agreed items and then provide you with a single payment. Now you've got a payment in the bank account and it links to these 10, 20 items. Remove unallocated cash, speed up premium payment. This is all, way we can get to. And this project's been, Rush-Recon had its, I want to say recently, it had its 15-year anniversary. But
I couldn't believe it.
But that was like a couple of years ago now. So it's that's been around for a while. And then claims we've kind of touched on in the London market as ECF has been that kind of moving from a process in series to one in parallel. But that claims notion has been picked up in other markets as well and tying them. And just to kind of pull that thread all the way through, although they didn't necessarily ask, but to pull that one all the way through, is yes, these are discrete processes within the insurance, your distribution, accounting, claims. Once then you've got the data going through, you can start to tie those together. So you can say,
for the first time in most cases.
In lots of cases, yeah. I don't think we've done it before. I think they've been seen as very discrete, separate processes. So, why would you tell your accounting team about a risk that you've written? Why would you say? So when cash turns up, they're like, well, hang on a minute, where's the contract? Yeah, and that can cause real issue. If you got cash received, but you don't know which contract it is, you can say, well, we're not on risk, or return the cash, and so we don't do ourselves any favors sometimes. So having that full transparency and link all the way through is ultimately going to have, where we need to get to is better client performance. So if this all ends up in clients not being told that they've submitted the money and then they get told they're not on risk, so they didn't pay, and yet they've paid someone, they go, well, hang on a minute, you need to get away from that, and then have all valid claims paid as quickly as possible and get people back to the situation they were before they experienced the loss.
It's interesting. A recently retired stalwart of the market from a broker actually once told me that there are certain companies within our market that have more people in credit control than they do in claims, which is quite a sad statement, isn't it? When you consider the reason we exist is to pay claims and to keep people, get people, like you say, indemnify and get people back to where they were before they had the incident. Actually, the majority of their work is moving money about and matching transactions and trying to figure out where this $1 million has appeared in a bank account and where it's come from.
Yeah, and I would argue that a number of companies have, they talk about the number of having credit control. Not actually doing credit control.
No,
they sort of do work around. And this is a conversation we have internally. That there's they're matching cash, and because you haven't got to do things through manual and paper processes is challenging around cash, and that's why I would say the Rush Foundation has been one of the more, again, one of those success stories that as interesting. And if we then tie that back into Blueprint 2. Notionally, I know we've mainly focused on Blueprint 2 phase 1, but phase 2 is to align itself really to is to use the Claude EBOT and ECOT standards, and that's where it wants to get to. And so it starts to align itself with the rest of the market. And And what that can mean from a broker point of view is that they would deal with the Lloyd's and London market as if it was any other market. I think that's where we need to kind of get to. We don't want to, we have specialties around the coverage that we do, and obviously, price and other things, but we shouldn't necessarily have an entirely separate process just for us as London and make a special, because that, as the rest of the world catches up and goes digital, we're in danger of becoming more challenging to deal with, and that's I think to be avoided.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose one of the things that I was thinking about is around all this and around the modernisation and the different things. Like how do you stay passionate? How do you still care? Because it's hard work, right? This is hard graft. Transformation is hard graft. Trying to move a market is hard graft. You're trying to do it almost on the outside by being supportive and of the initiatives. But what makes you still get up and enjoy it?
This is funny. I think wasn't a question we discussed before, and so I'll give you I'll give you
through this one.
There's all the questions, all the answers are being very kind of genuine, but it is the people side to it. It's the people side to the industry in terms of who you get to work with. There are plenty of pockets of passionate people in this market who want to do right by it, that have built a career out of working and want to give something back. Is probably not quite the expression I want to use, but it probably has a lot of sense. It's the So I think it's been very good to a number of people, and they said, right, that's it. So I think if everyone was anti it all of the time, that would be it. I've definitely had moments. We worked on electronic endorsements.
I mean,
and that's probably when we first met. We sort of tie that back to those 18 years ago, and I remember going in to see a marine underwriter. So their company had signed up to our tool for receiving electronic endorsements and responding to them. Similar again, it's the whole notion of all the brokers were doing it in subtly different ways. So they had to have an aggregated view of all those electronic endorsements, and we would then make sure the response went back to the right broker. And I sat down and I kind of started going through the usual sort of spiel, and we're going to do a training session and all things. And he said, right, just quite curious, and I can stop you just there. If I don't have a computer, how am I going to? And I just sort of went, yeah, well, no, you're not be able to do electronic endorsements without. I said, how? And And he used to get every email printed off, and then he would then handwrite a response on it, and then someone else would do. And so you have those kind of moments. You go, right, yes, some of this is challenging, but then we had. I remember going in to see a firm, and they shall remain nameless, but we sat down, and I was there with another broking firm, and we were just talking about what we were going to, electronic accounting and what it might mean. And we said, and it will eliminate your unallocated cash. Right? So that because you have this pre-authorized approval before money moves, you stop increasing any more on unallocated cash. You just don't. And they said, oh, hang on a minute, let me just dig in a little bit there. Said, you will remove our unallocated cash. Yes, that's the whole point of what it does. They had 500 million of unallocated cash.
God,
it was a London market firm. So, and it's not uncommon. It's not. So the significant sums of money, which is they've got the cash. Yeah, it's on the balance sheet. It's there. It's just not on the P&L. These are significant. And when you're looking at improving profitability and all those kind of good measures, it's not. And so, sure enough, they invented electronic accounting, and the team that we were dealing with, and not change. I mean, everyone loves change until it's happened to them, and then they can't. And they were. It was quite early on. It was with the credit control team. It was challenging. Some of the guys that were involved in it, they wanted to get it right, which is good, but it was there was some valid questions being asked about how this was going to work and all these details. And once we were live, we started working. One of the guys came up to me and he said, "This changed my life." Wow! I kind of thought, That's really funny. I don't really think about for the better, to be clear.
Of course,
You know,
yeah.
yeah,
Didn't
yeah.
it?
But no. It did, and it made his job. It was done in real time. It was like, oh, I can. I'm not having these like month end arguments with the broker. Like we're discussing in real time, right, what is going on. We've got visibility. We both know what the other party is doing. We've both got clarity of this thing. It's like it was a big change. And I'm not saying that's the only reason why I'm still in the world, but but it's not like you're constantly fighting.
No,
all the time. Like
my experience was similar but slightly different when we were doing the endorsements, in the fact that I don't know if I'd have told you this, but I actually nearly got sorted outside of Lloyd's when somebody asked. No, yeah, this was a particularly let's just call it a Luddite. I won't tell you what class of business it was, but it was a broker, and he came up to me and said, you're going to kill me off. My career's going to be gone. My children won't be able to go to school. If you automate all of this, what am I going to do? I honestly said, I was a bit taken back, but I honestly said, like, if you embrace this, it will change your life, right? You won't be doing this was all at the end of the day. It was all about the admin and the back office, and that chap, I think I saw retire 20 years later, and he was still fired, and he was doing his endorsements were going through electronically, and he didn't lose his job. And I wanted to sort of tap him on the shoulder, go, hi, remember me, we've all made it, we're all right. Don't worry, you can modernize, and it can benefit you. And I loved it.
And it's making sure people generally understand that the bits we're trying to modernize are to take out the rekeying and the non-value add tasks. But let's be really clear, insurance adds a huge amount of value to. I mean, if you think about, no business would happen at the moment. If you couldn't get your cyber insurance, take it back from the marine market way back when, no businesses, right? You wouldn't have to employ anyone, so employers liability. So businesses run fundamentally because you've got insurance. So there's huge amounts of value creation happening. We just need, so it's not like you're going to, that there's an intellectual capital associated to that in terms of people and relationships and the knowledge bit, but there is a whole then tranche of other activities that don't need to be done by rekeying. I would hate to think how many times an insurance contract in the London market on a subscription risk gets rekeyed into different systems, and that's not a good use of anyone's time. And then the inaccuracies which get introduced on the back of that, those are things that we should be able to. So let's capture the data once, reuse it multiple times, and then use technology. I mean, if you think about uses of technology, let's look at using technology to address the protection gap. There's still a huge number of people and markets which are underinsured or indeed not insured. Let's use data analytics to provide product for those marketplaces and technology to make it able to distribute those and no touch claims let's use technology positively to increase the market around insurance, not look at it kind of an insular, right, we can cut some jobs here because of that. I mean, I don't think anyone's in it to do that.
No, and I couldn't agree more. And hopefully you and your team, you're at the forefront of this. You'll continue to look after us all, make sure the market's still here. My daughter's in the market. My son's looking to come to the market. You're not getting rid of the Willoughbys anytime soon. So let's not let it lapse. Let's keep.
At least I don't say they didn't fall into it.
No, they won't, because they were forced into it.
I was going to get rid of slightly softer language. I think they told them the benefits of it.
They just see me come home so happy every day that I've come from the Lloyd's market. That this is it. So I'm going to wrap this up. This has been absolutely brilliant, very entertaining, and great to catch up after so long. And thank you very much for your time.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Great to see you, and look forward to speaking soon. As I say, I hope it goes out when it's relatively sunny. Otherwise, 33 degrees is going to feel like a distant, dim and distant experience.
Be people listening to this on a train when it's raining or snowing outside. No, we'll publish soon, and we'll be back very soon with another episode of Insurance Unlimited. So thank you for your time, James, and catch you all later.
Pleasure. Cheers, Paul. Thanks.
Bye bye.